The King is back live and on track with the reading of this wonderful book here, Eckhart Tolle's book, Awaken to Your Life's Purpose, A New Earth. It's a Sunday. Welcome to the Don Dada with a whole lot of the show. I'm in Austin, Texas. Went to church today, so I'm encouraging you now to find a church place. I know we've been hurt by religion. I know that churches seem to take your money and not disperse it throughout the community or throughout the nation as we would deem. But how are you? What are you going to feed your children? What are you going to feed your soul? How do you find good people, good community? Are you going to continue to go to the club? How are you going to find your life's purpose? Are you going to go to bars? Are you going to be on the internet and do dating apps? Love is a gift. A wife or a husband is a gift. You want a child of the Most High, the righteous Most High, to be given to you. So go to the place. I'm not a avid church goer, but I try. I try to put myself in positions in order to receive. Okay, I try to get rid of my ego and the identity of that it doesn't work for me, and the identity of that I don't need it, the identity of that I've been hurt by churches, the identity of that I've been hurt by religion. I try to rid myself and my thoughts of that and still attend because every time I go, find a good one. Find a contemporary, one that's not too small, one that's not too big, one that you can check into where the funds are going, and you give your tithing, you give your time, you volunteer. You want your children to be volunteering. You want this next generation to be the best in the nation. Okay, it's the Don Dada with a whole lot of I love you, and I need to love yourself. So we're going to continue reading this book. The next section of this book is called The Illusion of Ownership. You do not own your life. You don't run anything. You don't make laws. You don't make spiritual laws. You don't make democratic laws. You don't make republic laws. So it's best to humble yourself and become a child of the Most High, become a child of God, or continue to be a child of God and humble yourself and get rid of the identity that you believe that you have. Here we go. I hope you're ready. Get your water, get your tea, sip it with me. Mm, 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 mm. All right, let's rock and roll, baby. Austin, Texas in the building. We say our prayers for Austin, Waco, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, the whole nation. America is becoming a special place. I know it seems chaotic. I know it seems like you are not in control. Like I said, I know it seems like you that things are happening in a wild manner, but it should be because it could be. We need every single thing that's happening now because we are closing we are pulling on the reins. We're closing the doors. We're becoming separate from the world. This is going to be a sacred place that only if you believe, only if you are truly spiritual, are you going to make it through these times. This is the end time of the past, and a new earth, a new beginning is coming soon. Stay tuned. To own something, what does that really mean? What does it mean to make something mine? If you stand on a street in New York, point to a huge skyscraper and say, "That building is mine. I own it." You are either very wealthy, or you are delusional, or a liar. In any case, you are telling a story in which the thought form "I" and the thought form "building" merge into one. That's how the mental concept of ownership works. If everyone agrees with your story, there will be signed pieces of paper to certify their agreement with it. You are wealthy. If nobody agrees with your story, they will send you to a psychiatrist. You are delusional and a compulsive liar. It isn't important to the Bible says that God hates liars. He hates lukewarm, people who are on the fence, people who are not on hot or cold. He rather you either hate them or love them. The Don Dada wants you to either hate me or love me. Don't be in the middle because we don't care because you don't run anything over around here. It is important to recognize here that the story and the thought forms that make up the story. It is important to recognize here that the story and the thought forms that make up the story, whether people agree with it or not, whether you agree with it or not, the story is happening. Get on board. Have absolutely nothing to do with who you are. What's happened politically has nothing to do with who you are. Even what's happened with your children, what happened with your ex-husband, what happened in the past should not have anything to do with who you are. Even if people agree with it, it is ultimately a fiction. Many people don't realize until they're on their deathbed and everything external falls away that no thing ever had anything to do with who they are. In the proximity of death, the whole concept of ownership stands revealed as ultimately meaningless. In the last moments of their life, they then also realized that they were looking throughout their lives for a more complete sense of self. What they were looking for, their being, and actually always already been there, but had largely been obscured by their identification with things. You need to be identifying with your soul, not with your car, not with your children, not with money, not with your house, not with clothes. You should be identifying with certain other things, your soul, which ultimately means the identification with their mind. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus said, for theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. Do you want to go to heaven? Be poor in spirit. What does poor in spirit mean? No inner baggage, no identifications, not with things, nor with any mental concepts that have a sense of self in them. And what is the kingdom of heaven? The simple but profound joy of being. That is where, when you let go of identifications and become poor in spirit, this is why renouncing all possession has been ancient spiritual practice in the both East and West. Renunciation of possessions, however, will not automatically free you of the ego. It will attempt to ensue its survival by finding something else to identify with. For example, a mental image of yourself as someone who has transcended all interest in material possessions and is therefore superior, is more spiritual than others. So even religious people, when you become religious or you learn a few things, you identify with that identification and you believe that you're superior than others. This is ego. There are people who have renounced all possessions but have a bigger ego than some millionaires. If you take away one kind of identification, the ego will quickly find another. It ultimately doesn't mind what it identifies with as long as it has an identity. Anti-consumerism or private ownership would be another thought form, another mental position that can replace identification with possessions. Through it, you could make yourself right and others wrong. As we shall see later, making yourself right and others wrong is one of the principal egoic mind patterns, one of the main forms of unconsciousness. In other words, the content of the ego may change. The mind structure that keep it alive does not. The content may change, but the mind structure does not. One of the conscious assumptions is that by identifying with an object through fiction of ownership, you don't own anything. Just accept it right now. Say it with me. I don't own anything. I don't have an ident. I don't own anything. Okay? You don't. Come on. Talk to me. Talk white to me, and talk black to me. One of the conscious assumptions is that the identification with an object through fiction of ownership, the apparent solidity and permanency of that material object will endow your sense of self and greater solidity and permanence. This applies particularly to buildings and even more so to land, since the only thing that you think you can own that cannot be destroyed. The absurdity of owning something becomes even more apparent in the case of land. In the days of the white settlement, the natives of North America found ownership of land as an incomprehensible concept. And they also lost it when the Europeans made them sign pieces of paper that were equally incomprehensible to them. They felt they belonged to the land, but the land did not belong to them.